Hello, hello, everyone. We are back with another amazing guest, my friend Christy Holt, aka the Happiness Hussy. You heard her in season 1, and you can check out our last conversation with the link below this episode. But I'm just so excited to bring her back because last time we dove into a lot of things, happiness and cultivating inner power and really just happiness and more positive aspect in life on our last episode. And this week we're really diving into all things relationships, which is just like the hot topic this season, apparently. So, welcome, Christy. Before I ask my signature question, how are you? How's life?
I am amazing and I'm so excited to be back here. And I was just telling you before we hit record that I was re-listening to our episode and it was so good. I'm like, wow, but I don't even know how we're going to follow that magic up, but I believe in us. This or something better totally applies here. We're going to have the most amazing conversation. Super
Yeah.
excited.
I'm so glad you're back. This is going to be, honestly, I've been looking forward to this. It's going to be
Yeah.
so much fun. So, here's my signature question of the season. What for you is the most sacred part of the human experience, and how do you stay in flow with your divinity?
Oh boy. Oh, there's so many different pieces to this, right? Humans are so wonderfully and beautifully complex. Where to even go with that? I think that we're here to have a human experience. Like, I think it's not about maybe some of us have a grand purpose, and I'm not discounting that, but I think ultimately it's just about the experience. It's about taking what we might know, right? As the divine in human form, we're taking this idea of the concept of things and actually experiencing it like through our five senses. And I think for me, that experience is our expression of the divine, and cultivating an experience that feels honestly really fucking good for us, that is in alignment, that, is not wearing masks and performing for other people or doing things that we think we should, but literally creating the life that we really want. That's magic. And when we do that, of course, to lead into the relationships piece, we call in the people who are meant for us. We talked about last time, so go listen to that if you haven't already, a little bit about how showing up authentically is what allows your people to find you and allows you to create the relationships with other people that make you feel the way that you really want to feel, which is to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, and to be accepted for who you are, right? We touched on last time about when you're not being authentically you, and we can talk a little bit more about authenticity, but we did have a really great conversation about that last time. But if you're not being you, there's always a part of you that's going to doubt whether this person actually loves and accepts you, right? And it's not them, it's you, because you haven't been yourself. And so you're leaving this margin of misinterpretation, right? And so if you want to create the most amazing life, you're just going to follow what's inside of you. You're going to follow what you want to do, follow the things that are aligned for you. And that's where the magic happens.
So good. Yes.
Yes.
And it's just, I mean, relationships are literally what we're here to do. It's how we're
Yeah.
here to learn. It's literally like the school here on earth is every
Yeah.
relationship that you partake in. And I love, like, it's that whole, it's so cliche, but that whole your vibe attracts your tribe thing. It's so
Yeah.
true because if you're being inauthentic, you're going to attract inauthentic people, or you're going to be repelled by their authenticity, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't know. Relationships have been such a huge thing on the last 3 guest speakers too that have been here. And it's just like, why are they so important?
Everything's a relationship, isn't it? I mean, we have a relationship with our body. We have a relationship with the food that we use to fuel our body or lack thereof. We have a relationship with money. We have a relationship with strangers on the internet. We have a relationship with the way that we see politics and our government and social media and the world. Everything is relationship. And so when I talk about relationships, what I actually often say, and I think this might be my new kind of catchphrase, it's definitely woven into my upcoming book, is that you don't have a relationship problem. You have an identity problem.
Yeah.
And so what is at the root of all of it is the relationship that you have first and foremost with yourself. And I know because you are all about the self-mastery. I know that you know this. It is this inner relationship that is the foundation. for creating healthy, loving relationships, not just with other people, but with those things that I mentioned, food and money and all of those things too, sex, all of it, right?
Yeah. It's huge too. Like just before this episode, and I was teaching my fourth chakra class, and we were looking like our own narcissism and our own people pleasing and our own manipulation right in the face. And it was so hard for some of the people there to really face certain aspects of themselves. But it's like, if you can't be honest and authentic in that, in the most sacred relationship you have here on earth, then what are we doing, right? And it's true, and it is hard work. Like it's not like I do believe love can be easy. If you're too conscious, seemingly healed or whatever people, I believe it can be easy. But are there a lot of people out there that are living super consciously, semi-healed, willing to look at all these aspects of themselves? Until you are, it's going to be like iffy.
That
What?
part, you're not going to find them until you are that, right?
Yeah.
It's not a process of becoming someone else. It's actually just a process of being yourself and being yourself in your wholeness, right? Embodying all of the aspects, the good, the bad, the ugly, and those are judgments that I don't actually believe in, but just for the sake of getting a wholeness picture, it's the whole, it's the all. And when two whole people come together, I tell you what, I've experienced this firsthand, and it's fucking magical because we are not projecting our stuff onto one another. We can have adult conversations like it's meant to be, right? Without our own triggers or our own insecurities blocking effective communication or blocking hearing the other person. And it takes the work on your own part. Like I say, this relationship with yourself literally changes everything. For me, moving from last time we talked about my divorce and going through a high conflict divorce and everything else and how much that taught me, I've learned almost as much. In the flip side, with my current partner, we just celebrated 6 years together. It's been the most incredible time. And I've learned so much about myself in this process and about how to create really healthy, loving relationships that make you truly fucking happy. And okay, the little side secret is that like no one else can make you happy. That's an inside job. But when two people come together whole, it somehow is like magnified like a millionfold, and it's just pure magic. So, stop looking for someone else to complete you, to fix you. It's like that never ending hamster wheel of self-improvement and betterment and trying to, you know, always be growing. And yes, we're going to grow. But there's a beautiful thing that happens when we approach it from a lens of wholeness rather than an approach of something's broken, something needs fixing, I'm not enough, I need to be better. Let's set that aside. Let's approach it from a lens of wholeness because you are already everything that you were ever meant to be. You have it all with you. Just forgot, right? So lovingly, compassionately getting to know those parts that you have forgotten and or maybe have set aside on purpose because trauma, obviously, we've all been through some things. Come back to your wholeness. It's where the magic really starts to happen.
So yummy. So speaking of your relationship, let's get personal.
Yeah.
I probably know more than I should just by following you. Like I feel like I know your whole life. How have you, has it always been easy? Like from day one?
It's with us, it pretty much has been. I will say we had a really challenging conversation early on because I actually met him like about 5 minutes outside my divorce. And I, at that point, was like, I don't want a relationship. I I had just gotten out of this thing and excuse me, apologies for all the people listening. Apparently I have a frog in my throat. I had just gotten out of this relationship and I wanted to actually just sit in this wholeness by myself. Honestly, that's what I wanted. And yet, a year or two before, I had created this vision of what I wanted in a healthy relationship, what that would look and feel like for me. And I'll tell you, the key thing here is it had nothing to do with the other person. It had to do with how I would feel and how I would experience that relationship. And at this point that I've left my relationship and I'm not looking for anything, of course, I meet this incredible person. We met while running a marathon, literally. And he was the pace bunny, the pacer for my goal time. And so I chased him for 42.2 kilometers, which is 26 miles, for about 4 hours and 11 minutes. And in that time, we just chatted. I had no expectation. I wasn't even thinking about that. He just was my saving grace in getting me to the finish line. But there was something there, and I was so grateful that he helped me to reach my goal that I wanted to celebrate with him. So we got a drink and we connected on Instagram and we started chatting. And, things being things as they were, I realized this is a really incredible, kind-hearted human being, and I wanted to get to know him better. And then we hit this point where it was kind of like, are we going to have a relationship? Because I kind of don't want that yet. And he had also had ended his relationship about a year or so prior to that. And his biggest issue at that point was trust. So, painting the picture, I don't want commitment. And he is a thing about trust, right? So we had this incredible conversation, and it actually sealed the deal for me, to be honest, because it was so mature and it was so non-judgmental. It just allowed us to both express where we were both coming from. We both saw each other. We both said, like, yeah, like how you're feeling makes complete and total sense. And this is how I'm feeling, right? And how can we mesh those two very opposite things together? We didn't know. The conversation didn't end with like, never mind what we want, we'll just make this work. It was like, let's just take it one day at a time. And as long as we're enjoying each other's company, it's going to be fine. And if at some point in life we're not, well, we'll love each other enough to go separate ways, kind of thing. Right. And so this conversation was so pivotal for us. It was just really, it allowed me an opportunity to see how he handled my feelings, my heart, my desires for the world, and a difficult conversation. It was pure magic. So aside from that, though, honestly, we haven't really had any fights. We don't agree on everything because we're not the same person. We have different experiences and different perspectives, but we always very respectfully agree to disagree. It's honestly never been a problem. So it can be really easy when you find the right person, and when, most importantly, when you show up and you are that right person who has that relationship, you're showing up as the person who is co-creating it. That's when you're going to actually start to have those experiences you really want. It's about you. It's not them, it's you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing about your
Yeah.
journey, your connection. And I love that you were able to have that conversation and that you were able to really like just move in from that place of non-attachment. Oh, so freeing.
That non-attachment is magic, because I'll tell you what, the more you need someone to fill a hole in your life, ooh, there's so much pressure, there's so much expectation. And I'll tell you what pressure and expectation do, they create disappointment and resentment, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Because literally, so many people go into a relationship expecting these grand things out of another person. They're expecting that person to make them happy. They're expecting that person to fulfill all of their needs. And that, first of all, the happiness is not someone else's responsibility. That's an inside job. Secondly, placing that expectation on anyone else, even on your parents, that's not possible. All of your needs cannot be fulfilled by someone else. They're busy fulfilling their own needs, hopefully. Right? We talked about people pleasing last time on the show, so we can go back and listen to some of that to dive into that subtopic. But it's, ultimately, it's just an amazing situation when you both come whole. You're not expecting the other person to do something they can't do. You're, doing the work on yourself, which the work, it can be uncomfortable, so worth it. That's, the foundation for a great relationship is, you coming in, knowing yourself well, knowing your needs and how to meet them for yourself. And then when someone else can help you with that or add to that magic without the expectation, it feels so good. And when you feel that so good, then you want to help them back. You want, you want to reciprocate. And it just creates this amazing environment where literally you're both just trying your best to love one another in the ways that the other person receives love, and feeling that love just mirrored right back to you. It's amazing.
Mm. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. I want to dive into the roles a little bit that we put on people, right? And it's not even just in our romantic relationships, it's every relationship. Like we hear the word sister or best friend or partner or mother. And we automatically have all these roles we think they're meant to fulfill. And
Yep.
sometimes those roles look like therapist, lover, like
Yeah.
confidant, all in one, right? And if people don't match our expectation of the role they're meant to play, we create so much suffering and we try to blame them. And then like they're over here just like living their own life. And it's like, what
Yep.
is happening? But it's hard. How can we take a step back and really detach and look at roles that people get to play in our life, but more importantly, take accountability for those roles ourselves?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? There's so much conditioning out there as to what you're supposed to do and who you're supposed to be and what you should say and how you should interact. I think the key to a successful, happy relationship is dropping all the shoulds. I like to say, stop shoulding on yourself. Stop expecting someone else to do what you can do for yourself. And listen, I'm not saying that in a partnership that you're not going to help each other. What I'm saying is that expectation is too heavy for someone else to carry.
Yeah.
And yes, you absolutely can make requests. And actually, an interesting way to approach this so that you can release the expectation or start to, hopefully it's tricky. I'm not saying it's easy to release expectation. Listen, I'm human too, and I struggle with sometimes having expectations too. I want my business to make me $1 billion, and I can be disappointed all day long that I'm not there yet. But the journey is worth it, right? It's not about that end goal. If we got to that end goal, then we always realize as soon as you accomplish your one goal is like, okay, well, what now? Like we're happy for such a fleeting moment at those scenarios. If you can create that happiness within, you can enjoy the journey as much as, or even more than that ending outcome. But huh, how do we navigate I think it's just being ourselves, honestly. I really think it comes back to the authenticity, and the more you can just follow your intuition, follow your aligned path, whatever that looks like for you, without anyone else's input, redefining success and happiness and peace and love and joy for yourself, instead of listening to what society has told you are your roles, are your expectations, all of these things, will help you to stay in a place where you're going to feel really good. And I was going to add one more little thing to that. Oh, one of the ways you can really start to exercise this is by simply telling your partner the things that you would like. Okay. This is very different than telling them what you want them to do.
Right.
This is very different than that. This is just expressing your desire. Like just letting them know, hey, I would absolutely love to go on this vacation. Not like, I can't believe we're not going on vacation, like so many people do. Like, I'm so annoyed, and like, or maybe they don't even say anything and they just grumble about their unmet expectations that they haven't even communicated. But if you want to communicate it in a more effective way, it's just an expression of your desire, not an expectation that that person is going to magically fulfill every last whim of yours. But I'll tell you what, especially in a loving relationship, your partner wants to do the things that you desire. They do. They want to show you love in that way to make you feel so valued and so worthy. And so it's a matter of like just throwing the request out there. Like, I would love to see this happen. I would love this experience. I would really like this. I feel better when I'm just leaving it there. And honestly, I'll tell you what, if you don't put that obligation on top of it, that expectation, they're much more likely to respond. Honestly, from the flip side, I know that like in my past relationship, any sort of sense of like, well, why aren't you doing this thing like my mother did? I mean, okay, so maybe he didn't say those words, but that's how I received it, right? And it kind of was that underlying tone. It made me less likely to want to do those things because now you're like demanding that no, now I got counter will coming into play, right? And I don't even, now I'm annoyed about it and kind of resentful that you think that I should be obligated to do these things because simply I'm a wife and a mother.
Yeah.
I'm more than that. And so if you would just remove that and say like, yeah, I would really, even if it's like, I would love the dishes to be done, but I really don't have the energy to do it right now. I'm just leaving it there. I challenge y'all, try it out with a simple request. Just say, I would love this thing. See what happens, because honestly, they do want to make you happy. They
Yeah.
do. And if they can, they will. And if they can't, then like we have to be understanding because we can't be all things to all people all the time either. That's too much for us to bear. So this goes both ways.
Really, intentionality and word choices can change the trajectory of pretty much any situation. It's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I feel like I could talk to you about relationships all day. And I also know this is where you really help guide people. So I want to talk about your upcoming book
Yes.
and how people can work with you if they're just like ready to choose differently.
Yeah, I mean, so between the book and my podcast, I have a lot of very juicy takes on relationships. And they're maybe a little bit different than your regular relationship podcast because I am going to focus on the thing that you can change, and that is you. Right? Is not about changing someone else, is not even really about changing your circumstances. Those are things that may occur as you change yourself, and that's where your power actually lies, in changing yourself. So on Create Your Happy, which is my podcast, you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm diving into all of the things that you can focus on in yourself to really create those conscious, loving, healthy relationships, both first with yourself and then with others, right? And then the book, of course, is essentially going to be a guide to creating the healthy, happy relationships that you deserve, you know, tackling, of course, relationship topics because, we need to have some skills to navigate this. And unfortunately, most of us weren't modeled, healthy, loving relationships. Some people were very lucky for those who were. A lot of us were not. A lot of us came from, you know, families of divorce, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, sometimes it's the very, very best possible situation. It was for me. And those things have consequences, right? There are ripple effects that affect us. So if we can really just build the skills and then build that relationship within ourselves, we are going to be able to approach relationships from an entirely different perspective, from a lens of wholeness. And that is ultimately what the book is about. It's about a journey of, getting unstuck in relationships, starting with that most important one with yourself.
Ooh, I can't wait. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
me too.
While it's not out yet, by the time you're listening to this episode, it will be shortly. So check out
Yes.
all the links below where we're talking. Check out Christy's podcast. Follow her on social media. She's always posting really fun, authentic, raw stuff to help guide you. So thank you so much for being here. It was so fun to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love sharing. I feel like this is why I went through some of the shitty things that I went through so that I could alchemize it and turn it into an embodied wisdom that I can share with other people, really make a difference in the world, really raise the consciousness of this planet, really help other people to see life through a lens of love because they deserve it too.
You're doing it, and it's beautiful to watch. So thank you.
Thank you.
And everyone listening, thank you guys so much. As always, breathe deep and plan on miracles. We'll see you next time.